Hi, ArcfieldWeather.com meteorologist Paul Dorian here on Tuesday morning, January 3rd of the year 2023. A lot to talk about this morning. We'll kind of take a look ahead using some of the teleconnection indices, what's going on in the stratospheric level, and we'll start off here by looking at the 7-day forecast map of total precipitation amounts. This is liquid equivalent rainfall over the next 7 days as depicted by NOAA's Weather Prediction Center. And one of the big stories, there are many big weather stories here, not only in the near term, but in the medium and longer term as well. But the near term story, California just getting pounded away by storm after storm. They've already been hit by several storms, and there are several more storms on the way. This is the total precipitation amount, again, between this morning, Tuesday morning, and next Tuesday morning. And just take a look at some of these rainfall totals out here in California. Between 10 and 20 inches when you see the yellows right here across the northern half of California. Of course, over in this part of California, that's where the higher elevations of the Sierra Nevada mountains are, and they will have incredible amounts of snow over the next 7 to 10 days or so, as again, storm after storm pounds away at California. Meanwhile, a lot of dry conditions out across the middle of the nation, and a pretty wet down across the Tennessee Valley and the lower Mississippi Valley region. They, in fact, have the potential for some severe weather later on today and tonight. A lot of mild weather for the next couple of days across the eastern half of the nation. Well, let's now take a look at the snowfall totals as depicted by the last night's run of the GFS model. This is over the next 10 days. And again, we mentioned the Sierra Nevada region right in this part of California, and they will be just inundated with heavy snow over the next 7 to 10 days or so. Again, this is a 10-day forecast. You can see kind of the white right here. That's basically the highest on this particular scale. This is 4 to 8 inches or more of snow over the next 10 days right here in the Sierra Nevada, as depicted again by last night's operational run of the GFS. Some significant snow across the northern plains here as well. A very active weather pattern, again, with California getting hit by Pacific storm after Pacific storm. These make their way across the country and will produce some significant snowfall across the northern plains, and not quite so much on the significant side across the northeast, but indeed there will be some snowfall over the next 7 to 10 days or so in the northeastern states. We'll see about the I-95 corridor region. It's certainly very, very mild weather for the next couple of days. In fact, maybe some record-breaking highs on Wednesday, and certainly some record low temperatures for the next couple of nights in some of the mid-Atlantic region. It certainly gets more seasonal by the upcoming weekend. Well, given the very unusual mild conditions in the eastern third of the nation, we have a classic case of cold air dropping in across the northern plains. Again, significant snowfall in the near term across some of the northern plains, from Nebraska all the way up to the Dakotas and Minnesota. At the same time, you have some very mild, humid air pumping up from the Gulf of Mexico into the Tennessee Valley, the lower Mississippi Valley, and indeed, that spells the possibility of some severe weather later on today and tonight, even into the day on Wednesday, right in this part of the nation. Maybe even some isolated tornadoes as we begin the new year of 2023. Again, the possibility of some severe weather later today, tonight, southeastern U.S., Tennessee Valley, lower Mississippi Valley over the next 24 to 48 hours or so. Well, let's now take a look at some of the teleconnection indices that we typically focus in on this time of the year. We're looking here at the North Atlantic Oscillation, and we'll follow up with its closely related cousin, the Arctic Oscillation. Both of these are sliding down from either a positive territory, a neutral territory. In the case of the AO, sliding into negative territory, but certainly not as negative as what we experienced earlier in December. You can see right in this region right here, that was in the first couple of weeks of December, and we stand right here, right now, in positive territory for the NAO, and that will slide down towards the neutral line over the next couple of weeks. Again, certainly not as negative as what we experienced earlier in the month of December. Of course, later in the month of December, we had that severe Arctic cold spread across the nation, but we're not getting down to those kind of territory, that kind of territory over the next couple of weeks or so. Well, now let's take a look at the Arctic oscillation. Again, right now that is right around the neutral line right here, but it tends to drop over the next couple of weeks deeper into negative territory, but like the NAO, not quite as deep as what we experienced earlier in the month of December, going from the early to the middle part of the month of December, but it's certainly something we'll keep our eyes on. Again, very mild weather over the next couple of days in the much of the eastern third of the nation. Certainly a return to more seasonable conditions by the upcoming weekend, and perhaps downright cold conditions mid-month on. And this is one of the signals that we're getting is a drop in the NAO and the AO over the next couple of weeks or so. Well, now let's take a look at the Madden-Julian oscillation. This is another teleconnection index that we track this time of the year, really any time of the year. The MJO is quite important. This tracks a tropical disturbance that kind of moves around the tropical part of the globe on a regular basis, and the particular phases that it is going through tend to be correlated with certain weather patterns, both temperatures and precipitation in different parts of the world. And this time of the year, when the MJO kind of rotates through what we call phases 8 and 1 into 2, that's generally a cold signal for the eastern half of the nation. Indeed, that's kind of looking like where we're headed over the next week to 10 days or so, right in this fashion right here. By the time we get to the middle of the month, it looks like the MJO will kind of rotate around through phase 8 right here and then into phase 1. And those are typically colder than normal weather patterns or weather scenarios as related to this tropical disturbance for this time of the year. So it's something we'll also track over the next several days. Again, the MJO signaling more of a change back to a colder weather pattern for the central and eastern U.S., certainly by the middle of the month of January. Well, one last thing I'd like to take a look at is what's going on at the stratosphere. We're looking at the 10 millibar level, the temperature analysis, the temperature pattern way up at the top of the atmosphere. Again, we've seen these kind of displays before. This is the North Pole right here. We're kind of looking at top-down view. The U.S. right in this part of this particular map here. And again, the North Pole right there. As we begin this week here in January, this new work week here in the first week of January, we have a polar vortex sitting right on top of the North Pole. That's really where the coldest temperatures are, right near the North Pole. Kind of the lobes extending southward into the mid-latitudes, in this case into the U.S. here, and quite a change in 10 days. Let's take a look at the change for 10 days from now. And here you see the change in the stratospheric temperature pattern in 10 days. There's a warming that takes place at the highest levels of the atmosphere, and a little bit of a shift of that polar vortex and a little bit more of an extension down into the northeastern part of the country in 10 days or so. Again, right here is the North Pole. So it goes from this currently to this in 10 days. So there's certainly some changes coming to the stratospheric level. And again, many of these signals are pointing out the likelihood of certainly a more seasonable and maybe a colder weather pattern setting up by the middle part of January for the central and eastern U.S. But in the near term, very, very mild weather pattern, even some record-breaking highs possible on Wednesday in parts of the mid-Atlantic region, the northeast U.S. With that mild weather, the chance of severe weather later today and tonight down across the Tennessee Valley and the lower Mississippi Valley. And that kind of shifts, albeit a little bit weaker, on Wednesday into the southeastern part of the nation. So a new year, but a lot of activity going on. And again, the continuation of storm after storm for the state of California. That's it for now. For ArcfieldWeather.com, I'm meteorologist Paul Dorian.